What's up? I'm Keeyushee, one of the co-founders of SFDP, Same Faces, Different Places, based from Kuching, Sarawak. We're a music collective.
And my name is Tristan. I DJ under the name Heuremin. Co-founder of a collective called Nowhere, also based in Kuching. And yeah, what are we here for today?
Well, I mean, okay, so basically we're going to talk a little bit about our dubstep journey. Dubstep is a genre. Not a lot of people like it, I would say. It's it's an acquired taste. So we're going to sort of talk about our journey, what got us into dubstep, what it means to us, and, show you guys some tracks. So I think we should start from the beginning, I would say, the early days. How did you get started into dubstep?
Man, so I was listening to a lot of music at the time. I think my flavor was mostly psychedelic rock. It was very like band music kind of thing. Okay. And I think one of my first few forays into like electronic music was like a very moody kind of sound. So it wasn't specifically just dubstep, and at the time I didn't really know what it was called as well. I was just kind of like looking through artists, and one of the first few artists I really liked was a guy from London called Burial. And I mean, we've got the tracks in front of us, might as well, we can play some. Amongst other artists, of course, we can, just demo.
Yeah, we're going to show you some of the tracks. So a little bit about my journey, okay? This was in 2009 when I got introduced to dubstep. I was in Bangkok. I was studying in SAE, doing electronic music production. I was hanging out with a bunch of kids there, and they introduced me this one song, okay? Casper and Rusko. It's called Where's My Money? And at the time, I was kind of into electronic music. I didn't know dubstep as well. And I thought it was a new kind of electro. And then after like, a couple months maybe, that's when I found out it was dubstep. And I have the track here as well. But let's check out your first one.
Sure.
Burial, Ghost Hardware.
That's it.
Let's cue it up, man.
Alright, let's get it. Moody as fuck.
I mean, most dubstep, they start off like this, right?
Definitely.
It's like it's a vibe. So. What I like about dubstep, they build up.
Just those sub-frequencies, it's not so much about like melody, it's just about like a mood, it moves.
A lot of percussions as well.
So we won't run through the whole track.
We're gonna run through the whole track, and I was actually in the zone, bro. Okay.
Vibing out. But that was, I mean, like what really struck me at the time. I was living in a cold ass place in Australia, and I think just like the vibe of dubstep just suited that environment so well. It was like stepping out into like freezing air, and it's dark as hell, and you're just like, like walking to the bus or something like that, and
listening
it's
to
like
dubstep.
Midnight. It's just like suited that environment so well. And
that's a mood.
that was my intro to that stuff. It wasn't really a clubby sort of thing, which came later, of course. But,
Okay. Well, my track is a little bit different, man.
Yeah.
So let me show you mine, okay? So let's go. Where's mine? Okay, it's right here. So keep in mind, I was 21.
Yeah.
Okay. Hanging out with a bunch of degenerates. I was one of the degens as well. They showed me this track, and I got hooked straight up. Let me see.
Don't forget, you guys can save our language.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
This one's a little bit hard. So the intro is like one of my favorite parts.
What do you mean you're not going to be able to? What? Hold an account? We need to get it into the other account. What? You know, with the state of the music industry nowadays and the record sales and all that. You know what? Where's my money?
The drop is sick. So that's actually my first dubstep track that I've ever heard in my life. So very different, huh?
Yeah, you know,
How we started
I think 100%, man. I think that also like showcases just the different sort of like styles that it's kind of like branched off into, right, over the years. Because we're also familiar with like several labels that are, you know, so iconic that if you hear an artist from them, you know, shit, this guy is from, you know, this movement or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think what another point I think we should bring up is, you know, a lot of people have a misconception as to what dubstep is, I think, right?
I think most people, I think dubstep actually got introduced to the world through Skrillex. Yeah. Like he brought it mainstream. So I was one of the few people that, you know, started listening to dubstep because of Skrillex, because of Excision, Datsik, the heavier stuff. Yeah. And I want to shout out Tubby. All right, Tubby is a guy from Kuching. All right, he was running this collective in KL at the time called Bud Culture, and they were the only collective that was pushing the sound of dubstep. Yeah. So I remember it. I used to go to the gigs. Dude, they used to do it in this place called what's it called again? I forgot the name. Anyways, it's at the top floor. Pele, top floor. Dark as shit. 100 people, just like in that one room, and they're just playing dubstep. And I remember it. Like I told him, like, dude, I'm listening to dubstep, and he's like, show me some tracks. Yeah. So I showed him Skrillex, and he gave me shit for it. He's like, this is not dubstep. You should listen to, like, you know, these guys from Deep Medi from the UK. Yeah. And then he showed me a couple tracks, and I actually have some of the tracks. I think Scream was one of the few guys they showed me, the OG. Yeah. You know what? Let me just
give him a spin, man.
Yeah, let me just cue that up, man. One of my favorite tracks from Scream and Banga was, oh man, that's a few here. Ooh, this is an OG track, bro. I think you know this one.
Are we on the air?
Yes, you are.
Hello, Ma. I'd like to hear a new beat on the request line.
Okay, you got it coming up.
Absolute classic.
Yeah, and classic, right?
Classic.
The thing is with dubstep, people who listen to dubstep, when you drop tracks like this, and they're a real dub head, they'll go nuts, man.
They will, man.
What are some of the things, right? Okay. I think a lot of people, when they listen to dubstep, they always feel like it's a little bit too monotonous.
Monotonous in some way.
What's your take on that, man?
I mean,
because when I hear this, I'm going crazy.
So am I, man. Wait, let's wait for the jump on this. So I mean, ultimately, dubstep, like, for me, it's never been about like a melodic sort of like riff or a hook or something that catches people. I mean, like, to be fair, there are a lot of drops that I think are used in a very like intentional way, you know, and that to its core, I mean, compared to like other genres of music, I would say dubstep is still more drop reliant than, of course, let's say techno or like old school techno, for example. But at the same time, I feel like it's all about feel for me about dubstep. You know, it's really more like what you feel in your chest and kind of like how the sub interacts with you. You know, and it's all about like small little like textural kind of elements.
It's so for me, like when you explain it like that, right? Like dubstep is actually one of the only genres where I can listen to it without getting intoxicated. Right. So when I go to these gigs, like I go in there like just fully for the music. Right. 100%. And yo, like honestly, like just like you said, the drop, right? Like it really hits you. The build up, and everyone's waiting for that drop. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, and I think that's also why, as you mentioned before, it can be such a like polarizing sort of genre. Like some people love it, some people hate it. It's just whether or not you can catch on to that that sound, you know, that
yeah,
feel.
that feel.
Like,
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it for me, and I'm sure you as well.
Of course. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so you got a couple of tracks in there.
Just wanted to check. You guys want to like before you go further, the Euro versus US dubstep will that come in the picture? Can you explain the technicality of it?
Okay, so
maybe there's some Euro or US.
it's more US, yeah.
So maybe you can pass the ball to, or maybe you take over and then.
Yeah, I can just jump in on that for sure.
Okay, you talk about.
So like we were talking about, I mean the wave that let's say artists like Skrillex brought, that probably must have been like a decade after. I mean the origins of dubstep in the UK, or at least what dubstep was known for. Yeah, I mean like dubstep also has origins, of course. I think a lot of it came from kind of like veering away. Yeah, dub definitely, dub reggae, and also like the influence of like UK garage in the UK at the time. And I think dubstep was kind of like a rejection of that, because garage has always been about, you know, super happy vibes, like it's like that, it's upbeat, it's dancey, it's kind of like, it's glossy, you know, there's like fucking gemstones and champagne and shit, and dubstep is a rejection of that, you know. It was really for the masses, for the people that just either weren't you know accepted within like societies like that, or you know what I mean, like because
the
underground, exactly. So it was dark, it was gritty, you know, it was real. I think.
Of course,
And I think the wave that came later, that mostly came out of the US, was kind of like not necessarily a return to something more colorful, I guess, if that's the word.
It's a progression.
It's a progression, you know, but I feel like it's kind of become its own thing, you know, and to call it dubstep and to have it so well known, kind of, in my opinion, takes away a little bit from the, I won't say the spotlight, but it takes attention away from like original dubstep, and it's a bit hard to kind of,
it's a completely different thing.
It's a different thing, but it has the same name. That's the thing.
It does have the same name, but it caters to like different.
Crowds. It's a very festival sort of.
So I would say like the purists would definitely, you know, prefer the UK sound.
Definitely.
The darker, the more like low frequency sort of like vibrations. As for, you know, as opposed to the people that like the US stuff.
Right. 100%.
And the US stuff, as you can tell, like it's a little bit like. In your face.
Yeah, that's a
like,
very good.
When the drop comes, bro, it's like.
That's the best description.
And it's pretty nice though. Sometimes having like a mixture of both.
Yeah. You know, you wanna keep things interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
So just to sort of wrap that up. I love both dubsteps.
No,
depending on the mood, lah.
Depending on the mood, right?
Yeah, depending on the mood.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
You got some tracks? Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I do have.
What else you got, bro?
Let's see. So dubstep.
Show us the good stuff, man. Here's the good stuff.
Just to run you through.
The good stuff, bro.
I don't fall in your new toy, bro. Just to run you through, I guess my progression of playing dubstep out, right? So I was listening to a lot of like what people call, I guess, like post dubstep, you know, the stuff that I showed just now, like Burial. That's a lot more like, I mean, definitely works in a club in a certain situation, but a lot of what I play now is somewhat in a different vein. It's harder for sure. It's not necessarily as moody as well. Or I mean, it kind of is as well, but not in the same way, right? Like
that's the thing, man. It's so hard to like classify dubstep.
Yeah.
There's like so many like
for sure.
sub-genres.
So I mean, this is another song that I was put onto. It's also a classic as well that I do like to play out quite a lot.
Yeah, we love the long intros, man.
So I mean, this I would say is kind of like in the same vein as Midnight Request Line, which we just played just now. So you know, it's not too crazy, but just skip forward.
But it gets you.
Like very sparse instrumentation. You know, it's mostly just like maybe a loop or something. A lot of it is in the sub, right? So. So a lot of that kind of stuff, and I the way I DJ with dubstep nowadays is I don't normally do a pure kind of like OG dubstep sort of set. Like I my personal style is very like hybrid, so I like to kind of space things out because dubstep has a very kind of like chugging, like heavy feel, and its tempo isn't like, I mean, it's at like 70, 140 BPM, right? So I usually prefer to kind of like, depending on the song, I'll like play like a 4x4 kind of like 140 like up tempo thing, and if I feel the crowd needs a bit of a break, or if you want to change up the pace without like completely swapping to a different kind of like genre, I would kind of like step in with like a bit more of a hybrid track which has like breaks, or you know, like something, even something like this. I don't know, it could work, it depends on the scenario.
So I mean, the way I DJ with dubstep, oh man, since I started like quite a while ago, like I like to keep it like pretty pure. So I play a lot of the classic stuff. Funny thing is, like, dubstep's coming back right now. And I see a lot of DJs, they'll play like the classic tracks, and people go nuts, and it's all these new kids coming in, and it's, you know what I mean, they vibe, but I don't think they actually know when that song came out,
the history.
But the history of it, but it's still a good track, man. So let me just show you a couple of the tracks. Hey, where is it?
I mean, that being said, there's a lot of like really good like new stuff coming out, like within the same like.
I think that's where we differ, you know. Like you're like a little bit of the new.
Definitely, because I mean, I wasn't so into DJing at the time when dubstep was you know, like a big thing, right? So.
And the reason why I like to play dubstep, because it takes me back, you know. Let me see, man. Oh shit, let's go. Ooh, okay, this is like one of my favorite tracks. I actually saw this guy live in KL, Golf Trad. You know Golf Trad? So it starts off with like, you know, birds.
Got that ambient mood setting.
A lot of percussions. It's like a influence with that, like
that's a W.
Like, yeah, W. Yes. And the thing about dubstep, right? Like the build-up sometimes like doesn't represent the drop, and that's what I love about it. You know what I mean? Like it's a surprise. Yeah, dude.
Awesome.
So this track, man, one of my favorite tracks. I mean, if you play this out, man, I mean, like the real dub heads will definitely go crazy, but you know, it's
Actually, speaking of a more like kind of like dubby, or at least, I mean, I do have a track that I would love to like play out now. It's more leaning to like the dub side. It's got a like a bit of acidy sort of sound, but it is produced in like a bass music sort of way. So the artist is Unit, who does fantastic bass music.
Is he new?
He's been around for a while, but this specific track I think is relatively new. Can't find it. Yeah, just give me a minute. Where's my playlist?
That was a lot of playlists. Let's go. I think you got enough songs to actually do a set, right?
Maybe I can, bro. Yeah, I gotta search for this shit.
After this, maybe you guys can talk about the Kuching side of things.
Oh, Kuching side of things. Can
Okay, we're too involved in music.
So, Fisherman's Wharf, Ming.
Okay, you want to go there, is
First
it?
you can talk about Avnish and
Fisherman's Wharf. Okay.
East Dub Massive.
Oh my
So I think
God.
a lot of just that part of it is also not so much involved in this kind of like genre for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not in Kuching, right?
Not so much because I mean I really started off playing like more house and stuff like early on. Alright. So this is a track that I wanted to show. I mean it really doesn't follow any of the dubstep like skeleton, I guess. Like, but it's a fucking good track. Yeah.
hypnotizing, bro.
Yeah,
It's one
so
of those,
I mean,
like, tracks where you just like
I mean, it isn't a dubstep track at
It's
all,
not,
but it is from an artist that does so much like really good like
yeah,
stuff in that line, right?
it has the elements of dubstep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So man,
reggae dub.
Yeah, reggae dub. I'm interested, man. Like, since you have been to a few parties, like specifically bass music parties in KL and stuff like that. What are some sort of like influences that you found here in Kuching?
Okay.
In your past.
I gotta dig deep, man, for this. Okay. To make a long story short, okay. So I started when I first started like getting into dubstep. I really like tried to push the sound here in Kuching. There was like a small group of us. I started this collective called East Dub Massive, EDM. Back then I thought it was like the coolest shit ever. I was like, yeah, I had a Facebook page, a Facebook group and everything. And so like you said earlier on, man, dubstep is like a very niche sort of like music. I mean, people who gravitate towards dubstep is like very small at the time. So I was going around like different bars and clubs and just asking the owner like, hey, can I play for free? I bring my controller, I say I play for 1 hour, and then I just play 1 hour just full on dubstep, and I bring all my friends over. So one of the few guys, actually the first person that I saw play dubstep in Kuching, his name is Meng. All right, I remember he put up, it's a funny story, he put up a tweet, right? He was saying like, yo, I'm playing at Piccadilly's. It's no longer around anyways, Piccadilly's. And then he was like, yo, if anybody brings me a Red Bull, I'm gonna play whatever genre they want. So I got the Red Bull, I went to the spot, and I was like, yo, dude, this is your Red Bull. He was like, oh, thanks, man. It's like, what music do you want? I was like, play dubstep. And he was shocked, you know, he was like, dude, you're the first guy that ever asked for that genre. And he played for a good like 30 minutes. I was the happiest guy in the place, man. I think I was the only guy like dancing to it.
Yeah.
So that was like one of my first experiences in Kuching with dubstep. And then I got a shout out as well, like Morgan, Vox, you know, Ari. You know, those were the guys that I was running with at the time. And we all loved dubstep, and we really just tried to go from like different bars to different bars, just trying to play this music. And most of the time, right, they'll let us play, and then after a while they're just like, okay, you guys gotta stop playing this shit, man. Like,
it's scaring the hoes.
yeah, exactly. It's scaring everyone, you know. But like, you know, eventually dubstep became like mainstream.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, those are like some of my first experiences in Kuching with dubstep.
You were a bit ahead of your time.
Yeah, a little bit at the time, but like I said early on, my first real introduction to like the bass culture was with Bud Culture in KL. So shout out to Bud Culture. Hopefully you guys come back. Just do a last show lah. Just do a last show, man. Tabi, I'm calling you out right now, bro. You always hit me up. You say you want to play, come to Kuching and play. What about you, man? Yeah. What about you?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't really go to that many like pure dubstep gigs. I think for me the genre that really got me into bass music was drum and bass and jungle.
Right.
So, I mean they're both like regionally from like a same kind of like area. You know, it's like UK sort of sound. But I mean, tempo-wise, super different. Instrumentation, you know, how it actually sounds, pretty different. But they're both very bass heavy, and I think the best way to kind of show you is to play a song.
Yeah, play a song.
So this is a classic as well. And sorry, I haven't even answered your question yet.
Yeah. So no worries. Take your time.
One of the first, the first few. Let me go back. The first few parties was out in Singapore, by a group called Revision Music. Shout out John, shout out Nez, you know, all these guys, super awesome. I think Singapore actually has a really nice drum and bass scene. Like it's fun. It's just like, you know, really tight knit, and yeah, I really liked it there. So that was kind of the first party that got me into it, and I had been listening to some kind of like breaky stuff, but I feel for me going to a party changes everything, you know. For you.
Of course. That's where you get the full experience, I feel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is classic.
Valley of the Shadows. You always got like the coolest names. Like the darkest, skankiest names, man. So what is this again? Sorry, yeah.
This is like a break. It's like 160, you know, like.
That's the thing with dubstep, right? You can kind of like mix it up with this.
Yeah, I mean like,
You know?
I think mood-wise, they're kind of like, they're siblings, I would say. You know,
Yeah.
like
They complement each other.
they complement each other. I mean, like it's a bit hard to mix them like in like a set like on and off, you know, because they're so different in terms of tempo. But I think they share a lot of like similar elements, and I think the samples that they use are in the same sort of like vibe.
Totally.
For me,
Yeah.
So I mean, this style is also kind of making a resurgence on TikTok and like
Really?
all this. I mean, like they call it a breakcore.
Breakcore.
But it's atmospheric drum and bass. Like a lot of at least the way the stuff that I was like listening to.
Right.
TJ Bootcamp, like all of these guys.
You're on TikTok, bro?
No, but I hear a lot. I hear a lot
didn't
of
know you're on
stuff.
TikTok,
No,
bro.
I'm not.
Hey,
I'm
shout
not.
out your handle, bro.
I'm not. Hey. But yeah, so I mean, like, I would say it's like what's coming out now from like a lot of the newer producers are. I mean, the sound is pretty in line with what you hear from like a '90s atmospheric like drum and bass sort of sound.
Right.
But I think it like these kind of styles always have a way of kind of coming back.
Of course, yeah.
It's the same with dubstep, like we were
Dubstep.
talking about.
Right.
It has
It's
its time
coming
and
back,
it comes
dude.
back.
It's
and
coming back,
It's all
bro.
cycles, right? So,
And guess who's bringing it back?
let's go, bro.
Skrillex.
Oh, Skrillex. Yeah, I thought it was us, bro.
Yeah, us too. But I mean, in terms of like producing, I think Fred. Well, not Fred again, but like Skrillex.
Different stuff.
Like his new album.
Yeah. So a lot of producers are really dipping their toes back in.
Like some of the new guys.
Back in the sauce.
Skanka. I know Hamdi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of which, do you have any of that newer stuff?
Oh man, dude, I'm an old guy, bro.
On it.
I only play old stuff, man.
You've got a Hamdi track, I think.
Yeah, I do. But like I said early on, man, I prefer playing tracks that actually like speaks to me.
Right.
So when I drop a track, like it brings me back to a certain point in my life.
Yeah.
Where like,
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm gonna try to see if I have something new. If not, I'm gonna play. Oh, okay. This is like one of my favorite ones as well. Fabrication, bro. Middle Eastern vibes, bro. The thing with me, right? I like to play the intro.
Yeah, dude, play it up, man.
Okay, let's play it up. But you think, right? Like this track, can you tell that it's from like a whole different time?
No, probably
No?
not, man.
You
Yeah.
can't? Okay.
I mean,
I feel like this is like the oldest structure of like dubstep.
a bit, but I feel like there's so much new stuff coming out that kind of like emulates this sort of like
It's kind of like
this
sound.
kind of sound. I would say.
Drop the bass. So I would say like this is more of like the clubby kind of dubstep.
Yeah.
But
You're a clubby guy.
no, I'm not really a clubby guy, bro. I don't know. I didn't have time to put like all the songs in my pen drive, honestly, bro. But like usually when I do play a show, right?
Yeah.
I prefer playing like the darker, moodier stuff. So I mean, if you want to see that kind of stuff, you gotta come to my show. Like.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of shows, you got
Speaking
one
of-
coming up?
Sick.
Yeah.
You got one coming up?
You're on it, bro.
I'm on it? Shit. No, okay. I know.
I mean,
okay.
the deeds will be coming out.
Right.
We'll plug them for sure, but yeah, Kuching.
It's gonna be interesting. Okay, I'm gonna play one more. This is from, I don't know if I played this. Okay, wait. Yeah, haven't played it. This is from Scream and Benga as well, I feel. It's one of my favorite tracks. I mean, they're all my favorite tracks, but this one is filthy as shit. So this one, I think.
Literally in the name.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Phil. And I think they sampled a pterodactyl, bro. Like, this is how I imagine a pterodactyl sounding, bro. Like, for real,
I was like,
bro.
how the fuck do you have a mic?
Okay, it's coming. It's like a pterodactyl, like, beatboxing. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
stuff, man. Good stuff. Yo, actually, I need to get back onto the homework for a lot of the older stuff because
I gotta get on the newer stuff.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we both do.
Yeah.
Like, I think with my journey into like DJing for bass music, it's always been such a hybrid thing. Like I mentioned before, that I never really like done the research into a lot of the older labels and stuff like that. And like you're asking, like, can I tell how whether it's like a track from like
way before
20 years ago or from now. And the crazy thing is, like, with how forward thinking I think a lot of the producers were with their sound design and all of that, like, it's hard to tell for me sometimes, you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people are also trying to like touch back onto that sound that they had back then. And so
but for me, I mean, I can sort of like tell a little bit, because like most of the stuff I play is like the classics.
For sure.
Yeah, and some of the stuff you play, like, honestly, the new guys, they're pretty good. A lot of percussions. Less of the you know what I mean, like. So let's see. Is there anything you want to play next?
Yeah, I did want to kind of see if I had some. I mean, so the kind of stuff that I was playing was kind of very mixed in with like a lot of electro and kind of like they use the chord kind of like left field bass, right? That's like the term I would use for it, because it's kind of, it doesn't feel right to call it dubstep because it's kind of like different, like
same but different.
I mean, this is my more.
Oh, you got that Humvee track.
Yeah. So I think something like this is a good example of what's super kind of like mixed up, right?
So what do you call this genre?
I don't know, man. Like, I just call it like bass. I mean, it does have dubstep elements. It does have kind of like a 4x4 sort of like intro, which is like good to mix with. That's what I'm saying. It's like it doesn't feel right.
Right, but it is bass.
Yeah. You can get into it. I mean, like it's
sick. It's unpredictable.
Yeah,
it's super unpredictable.
So I mean, like it definitely draws from a lot of like bass like genre, like style, but also it mixes it up with like different like parts of the song have a different like structure for the drums and stuff like that. And that's really kind of like, that was always my intro into so many genres, right? Like I'd always like to mix it up. So yeah, it's hard to call myself a purist of anything because I never came from that.
Exactly. Okay, I understand. But I like this though because like it's very unpredictable. It starts off like a bit techno-y.
Yeah.
And then it catches people like off guard,
right,
like with the with the bass kind of drop. Yeah. So I gotta get into that more, man. Let me see what I got for my 20-year-old playlist, bro.
After this,
okay.
We can talk about how you guys met.
Right. Okay, can.
I don't know how you're gonna segue into it, but figure out.
Okay, but so obviously started off with heavier stuff, then I got into the UK stuff, and then later on I kind of got into the more, I don't know what you call it, man. Like it's a lot of vocals. It's a combination. I think it was Scream and Banga. They call themselves Magnetic Man, and then this is like the more lighter side of dubstep, if you can even call it that. That's dubstep elements, lah. Let's see which one I'm gonna play. Okay, let's play this one. The only reason why I call this dubstep is because it's from Scream and Banga. They started off like a little duo thing with another guy, if I'm not mistaken. My info might be wrong, it's been a while. But eventually I started getting into like the more like, I guess, colorful sounding dubstep. So like, when I DJ and things start getting a little bit dark, That's when I drop this kind of stuff. What do you call it? Like breaks.
Something told me that I'll meet you today. Your energy when you touched me lifted me off the ground. Your words to me are like music.
So what came next after that for you? Because like we know each other's kind of like styles nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think we had a very interesting intersection as to how we kind of like started.
Like how we met,
How we
and
met,
how
and
we
how we
kind of
started,
like
like,
started DJing
working
together.
and
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Like, what was your side of it?
From my side of meeting you,
Yeah.
damn, okay. All right, I remember like we were actually, I was supposed to play for a show, right?
Yeah.
At Zinc. And then, yeah, James was like, hey, you know, like I got another DJ, Tristan. So I was like, yeah, cool. You know, he has his own controller, like I have my own controller. Then we were like DJing like on separate controllers, back to back.
Like different software.
Different software, different everything. So he'll be like, oh, I'll play one song, I'll play two songs, I'll play two songs. He'd be like, yo, chill, like I got the next two songs. Then we started like mixing, and then we figured out that we kind of have the same sort of taste. And actually, you're like one of the first few people that I've actually met in Kuching who was kind of into that sound.
Yeah.
It wasn't dubstep. It was more like, I would say, in the same sort of like world as future bass.
Sort of, yeah.
Is it like SoundCloud music?
SoundCloud sort of,
I call it SoundCloud music. So I think Keeyushee Heuremin was a big one.
Yeah.
And then we just started going back and forth, and you know, since then I was just like, yo, this is the guy. Like if I was ever gonna DJ back to back, it was definitely him. And I mean, you're like way younger than me, right? Like so how did you even like start getting into all these you know, searching for all these kind of music, man? Like,
honestly, I just spent too much time online, man. Just like on forums and shit. I was in like Facebook groups and stuff. Just to like, I was like hungry for music, you know?
Right.
Mostly during my like uni time. And I was just like trying to get into all these little pockets of music. From everywhere around the world, right? I mean, that's the beauty of the internet. You can like access stuff that like you normally wouldn't be able to find a party for, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, like I said, you know, a lot of what we were playing on that night. For context, it was a New Year's Eve set, and we were supposed to play like disco and house and stuff, and it just devolved into like a fucking like. There was a guy with a saxophone that just came out of nowhere, joined us, and he was kind of like playing along. He was freestyling.
Yeah.
That was a really good night. But yeah, back to your question. I mean, it really was just from looking like following the chain of genres, I guess, or like finding a track that I really liked, and I was like, you know, where can I find more stuff like this? Or like find a record label and then find other artists that are signed
similar, or
yeah. So it really came down to that, and then I think it for that. I mean, I started off DJing like house and techno, starting off. So I think that's kind of the impression that you got from me when, because I was DJing a bit in Kuching, but I think it was kind of hard. Yeah, we kind of just started our collective nowhere. So yeah, that was kind of what we put out there, and I think that's kind of what people saw us as. But it was great that we had that chance meeting, because it did lead us to kind of like, you know, understand that like a DJ has so many different like faces of to themselves, to their music,
taste,
right? Yeah. And the great thing about that, man, is that like I feel, because we hadn't really talked that much before, that whole conversation happened through track selection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty.
That was cool, man.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. And ever since then, like whenever we like, I guess I'm also part of a collective, right? It's called SFDP. So whenever we're looking for like another DJ to do back to back, Tristan is always my guy because of his music taste and, you know, just the selection that you play.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Cheers to that, bro.
Cheers, bro. Cheers to one Asahi, bro. Oh, so yeah.
Anything else?
Maybe hopes and dreams for the scene in Kuching.
Hopes and
or,
dreams.
Or hopes about Kuching, as well as the future of bass music, dubstep.
Oh, hopes and dreams of Kuching. Shit, man. I'm gonna sound like a bitter.
Right.
Shit. Yeah, I've been in the scene for too long, bro. Like, every time someone asks me that, I always shit on like the freaking like scene, dude. Damn, bro. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, like moving forward, right? Like,
Moving forward. Yeah.
I think with kind of like got a little thing going on in Kuching, right?
Kuching is growing.
Yeah. Personally, I'd like to see it kind of blossom a bit more. Honestly, like I would like to see more competition. And that sounds a bit weird, but
no, it's okay.
Like
Healthy competition,
right? You know, it's
I
like having a thirst or a hunger for this kind of music and seeing people just really passionate about what they do. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Kuching's like such a small place and people are generally very supportive of each other here that it'd be great to have more people starting stuff, you know, whether it's like genre specific or just general sort of parties.
Whatever they
like,
pretty much. Yeah.
I kind of like I would like to see a lot more like freedom of expression. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree, man. I agree. Well, my hopes and dreams, same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it is growing. The scene is steadily growing.
Yeah.
A lot more people coming into. I mean, we got Nowhere, we got SFDP, we got Sonic Syndicate, we got Lek. You know, like
shout out
making
Lek.
sure. Yeah, shout out Lek, man. Like kind of the glue
Yeah.
within the community, I would feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, just more people coming into the scene and just doing their own thing. Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not. I mean, you know what I mean? Dude? Like, just do it, man. Like, what do you have to lose, right? Like, if you're into, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be DJing. You know, if you're into like, you know, in a band or something, you want to do something, just do it. You know, and the community is very supportive.
Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, just.
Let's go up, talk to anyone.
Yeah, just do it, man.
Look for
Like that's the
JP.
only. Yeah. Look for JP. Do the events at Leg, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my hopes and dreams for Kuching. You know, but on the flip side, like I do wish that you know, it's a little bit faster, lah. You know, that's all.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been in the scene for a little bit. Yeah.
But I mean, just like looking across the pond into like KL, I mean, there are like some really good things happening on like a newer wave as well. You know, there are collectives like Break Boy Club, Dub Things. You know, these guys are so like active in. I mean, they're not like super. They're not like from like Tabi's day, right? You know, a lot of these guys are from a newer wave and. Yeah, just going to their parties and stuff like that. Like they do some really good stuff. You know, bringing quality artists and you know, like definitely, yeah. That's something like I feel a scene needs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Another collective I want to shout out is like Saturday Select. Like,
Saturday Select.
Yeah, those were the guys that like really inspired me, especially. I've been to a couple of their parties. Curation on point. You know, the DJs are always on point, and it's always such a good vibe. Like everyone that goes to the party, like. You know, everyone's like the same, you know, same mindset, same vibe and all that. So shout out to them for still doing it. Yeah, they're getting big, bro. Yeah, they're getting big.
On the radio shows and everything.
So yeah, dude. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And also the bass music in Kuching. What do you think? Can or not?
Just gotta keep trying. You know what I mean?
That's how we're doing this.
That's how we're doing now.
That's how we're doing this, right? So yeah. Yeah, man.
But funnily enough, I have been getting some requests at some of our parties, you know, of people asking for like drum and bass and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I think there is definitely a demand for it, like ever.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like getting the word out.
Just starting it.
And
just being consistent with it.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll attract the right people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Consistency is key.
Yeah. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you say Rukun TV?
Yes, sir. So.
That's an outro. Call to action.
Call to action, huh?
Okay. If you have anything in your mind, it's like hit Rukun TV.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hit Rukun
Can you
TV.
say to the camera?
Okay. This camera.
All right. So last of all, like big shout out, big thank you to Rukun TV for having us on here. They're doing an amazing job of covering events like of all different tastes and genres.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, hit them up, man. If you guys have anything going on, they're more than happy to be a part of your event or to even shout you out. So yeah, man. Subscribe to Rukun TV. Like, subscribe. I don't know what this is gonna air.
That's true,
but yeah, dude, let's just like pop, like do that shit. Rukun TV. Yeah, let's go.